Good morning and welcome. This is the Frank and Jill Show on the Big 550 KTRS. Great guest list today. The president of the Cardinals, Bill DeWitt III, is going to join us. Could Busch Stadium 3 be looking a little bit better in the near future with some government money? Back in time, the irrepressible John Sloan, backed by popular demand, mostly his own. We're excited about that. John is a character and a real broadcasting legend. Joe Edwards is going to join us at 11:35, the founder of Blueberry Hill and such a force in the Del Mar Loop area.
Yeah, 100%. That is going to be a fun conversation as well. But all three, I think, are going to people are going to learn something they didn't know before. How you doing? How was your weekend?
Everything's good. Yes, I had a good weekend. I did.
Did you get the proper amount of golf and enjoy your time in the heat as you're prone to do?
Didn't bother me a bit. Yes. In fact, if some of it was at the zenith of the temperatures. Had a podcast on. The kids were with me part of the time, so it was good.
They got too hot. They said, "No, Dad, we've got to take a little break here. It's a little too much."
Well, there was one moment. We always walk, and there was this one very, very embarrassing moment. We got a cart one of the days, and some people were going by, and they see us, and it was Dom and I in the cart, and Brooke is 7 months pregnant and insisting on getting exercise. And these people gave us a look like, oh, my God, what a bunch of jerks. This pregnant woman walking in 90 to 5 degree weather, and these two guys are in the cart. Gosh.
Sorry, Brooke, we wish there was a little space for you here, but it's kind of cool as we're driving along. The wind's blowing through our hair. It's pretty darn nice.
And you weathered the elements too.
Yeah, we did. We got up and rode our bikes over to the Tower Grove Farmers Market. I kind of naively thought maybe it wouldn't be as big a crowds this week because the heat might have scared a few people away. Nope, it was packed, and which I'm always very happy for the vendors because it's hot for them to set up and to be there, and so I want them to be able to have a lot of people in the crowd to support their buying of their wares and other things like that. And it's such a cool St. Louis thing. And so I love that there's thousands of people that go out for it during the whole season. Have you ever been?
I have not, but it sounds cool.
It is fun.
I love those markets.
Yeah, it's a nice mix of really, really delicious, like hand pies and a great, Asian dumpling place and all stuff like that. And then just, Amish farmers there selling tomatoes. And I love the mix of things. And then we did go to the Lafayette Square concert. Jeremiah Johnson Band, legendary blues band from here in St. Louis, played Saturday night. And everybody who from the neighborhood who we said, come over and join us, everybody showed up. Nobody got spooked by the hot weather, and it was really fun.
Yeah, as long as you're moving around a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's my question to both of you and to our audience. If I were to have offered you 2 green seats to the Cardinal game yesterday, but the stipulation is you can't go inside, you got to sit out there for 9 innings, would you have done it?
Yeah, I would have done it as long as, could go in occasionally. As long as you get a break occasionally, I think you can hydrate properly. And
I don't know. If somebody offered me green seats, now granted, I don't have access to green seats, but if somebody offered me green seats, I would not have gone yesterday. I walked over there in the 9th inning because I'm working on the show to get interviews, and I thought to myself, how do these people? And you know what? The total tickets sold were 27,000. There probably were 27,000 there, but there were a lot of people there. There really were, and I think, God, I admire you. Just sitting there for 3 hours, that's crazy.
I'm definitely.
What would you do, Connor, if I offered you green seats yesterday?
Green seats I would take. I did this last year. But it wasn't green seats. It was the right field bleachers on a day like this weekend, but there was no clouds in the sky. It was a day game. Sun's bearing down on us the entire time, and we're just sitting out there in the bleachers. I got nachos. It was the dumbest mistake I've ever made. You can't eat nachos in 115 degrees in the bleachers.
Yeah.
It's humid as heck. It was. So if I did that, I would take the green seats.
Okay,
that's me. If you had the green seats in there, I'll do a lot of things for free food and drinks. I'm sorry to say, I just.
Well, you're a media member, so.
If I'm being honest,
Yeah.
I am very motivated by the option of somebody feeding and hydrating me. Connor, you are a big NBA fan. What do you think? What are your thoughts on the final?
Yeah, that was what I did yesterday. Was eventually watch the Game 7. It was just such a disappointing moment when Indiana's star player, star point guard Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, I guess we haven't gotten confirmation on what the injury is, but he probably tore his Achilles in the first quarter, and after that, you kind of knew how it was going to go. So it was disappointing, but it's
It
just
could
in a
have
disappointing
been
way.
like incredible.
Yeah, because he came out firing, and
Yeah, and they're up by one. You think they're going to win a game on the road without their best player. This is a true Hoosier story, but didn't work out.
yeah, they even hang in there, but they couldn't stick around.
Oh, and that was the team you wanted to see win the whole thing?
Well, sure, they were the underdog. Yeah. At the start, I wouldn't have picked the start of the playoffs. I wouldn't have picked them as the favorite, but you always got to cheer for the underdog, right?
Yep, for sure. Well, I was curious because when I was reading about it and listening to the how describing the game today, I thought Connor, I know, was watching it, and I didn't think either team was one that you cared about as many as others. But
No, it's not. Very much a neutral in that one.
All right, so you guys were talking about temperatures before the show, and this is Monique's rare contribution to the program. The best temperature to set your air conditioning, what do you think it is? It can maximize efficiency. What's the best temperature in the summer?
I'm going to say 77.
Yeah, probably like 74.
Oh, boy, 78, pretty good.
Wow. Do you keep it at 78 in your house, Frank?
No. According to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Energy Star program, energy companies in Florida, Maryland, Missouri all recommend their thermostats at 78 degrees during the summer months.
I can handle it in the house warmer during the day, but I have to say at nighttime, I do not like sleeping in warmer temps.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's great in the winter because we, you keep your thermostat at like 60 in the winter.
Yeah, we talked about this on Friday with Bob Ramsey and Steve Savard, but I make up for it. I keep it lower than 78 in the summer, much lower, but I make up for it in the winter when I either have it off or very low heat for most of the winter. So there you go.
All right, let's take our first break. Got a good guest list. Bill DeWitt, John Sloan, and Joe Edwards. This is the Frank and Jill Show on the Big 550 KTRS. All right, let's begin with thought one. So there is a debate on whether it was the right thing to launch that strike on Saturday night. Most of the people who despise Trump hate it. AOC, Bernie Sanders were sending out tweets that night. AOC is calling for impeachment. And most of the people who like Trump thought it was a great idea. The Wall Street Journal praised him. By the way, John Fetterman on national television today said it was a good thing. History teaches that the initial popularity boost may have a limited shelf life. I was texting all weekend with Professor Greg Willard, and he said, remember George H. and his 90% support in 1991 after the triumph of the Gulf War, then check out where it stood 2 years later. So we will see how it will be judged. What is the Iran response? Will American soldiers be harmed? What will it do to oil prices? Will it lead to a long war? We do know this. Some very, very bad people likely don't have access to nuclear bombs. I'm going to focus on something that is not debatable, though. Our military did an insanely great job. It began with the deception. Trump said 2 weeks ago it was about 2 weeks before making his decision. The initial planes looked like they were headed to Guam. 30,000-pound bombs were dropped on targets the size of washing machines, 14 of them. 125 planes involved overall, 37 hours round trip. Not a single Iranian airplane knew what was happening. We got out with a single shot, without a single shot being fired. So from that perspective, there's no debate. Our military is real and spectacular.
Coming directly out of Whiteman, of course, Air Force Base in Missouri,
Yeah.
and all over the national news yesterday morning. If you watched Meet the Press or any of the other national shows, they were Whiteman, and the fact that these planes came from Missouri, fueled midair, and then came back. We were at the lake, just quick side note, Frank, right after, not too long after 9/11. And they weren't B-2s at that time, but other fighter jets were running maneuvers before they went overseas to Iraq, and were doing maneuvers at Lake of the Ozarks, barely above the tree line, because they were looking on hilly terrain. And I have to tell you, when you're sitting there and those fighter jets are coming, doing maneuvers just basically directly over your head, it is a sight to see for sure. Back closer to home, first thought for me today, got an email this morning from Gateway Arch Foundation reporting that the study that they asked to be conducted about the economic impact of the City Arch River project has come in. They claim that it has generated $599.4 million in economic impact for the St. Louis region, 4,400 jobs, 14.1 million in tax revenue for the region. And last year, by the way, in 2024, Gateway Arch set a record, tied the most ever visitors at 2.5 million.
And they attribute the sudden rise in attendance to the Arch to what?
Well, I think the foundation is, the Gateway Arch Foundation is using these numbers to show that the project, that huge construction project, which was hundreds of millions of dollars, to be able to connect downtown to the Arch, so you didn't have the division of the highway there, has created this atmosphere so that a lot of people who are in town, for whatever reason, convention or whatever, can get to the Arch grounds, that maybe that would have been more challenging in the past, and they wouldn't have made the more circuitous route to get there.
I wonder how our audience feels, because I think a lot of St. Louisans just, they go to the Arch when they're 10, they don't go back. And now I've been down there since they've spent all that money. It is beautiful. It's a great place.
Yeah, we go down and just take a walk there occasionally, because they've done such a beautiful job in the grounds, and you can walk along the trail now, or we ride our bikes down. And there are quite a few people on any given weekend that don't look like tourists who are down enjoying the experience as well. But I think you're right. It's always going to be tourism dollars, but that's okay. We need those dollars. Those people are spending money at hotels and restaurants and have a wider economic impact. So I'm thrilled that it continues to be such a draw for people coming to St. Louis.
I remember one time being at Chemo's, and my dad picked up the phone, and the guy said, well, we're not dressed real well. And my dad said, well, is your money green? He said, yes, it is. Well, come on down. So Thought two. Get ready for the biggest week of the season so far at Busch Stadium. Cubs are in town. Not only are they your arch rival, but they could determine if you're a playoff team or not. We just haven't had many appointment television series all season long. Maybe the Dodgers because of the star power, but this is bigger. If you win all four, you're a half game out of first place by Thursday at 4 o'clock. If you get swept, you're 8.5 games out. The Cardinals have been quite good against winning teams this season, and make no mistakes, the Cubs are a really good winning team. Only the Dodgers have a better winning percentage in the National League. And the Cubs feature one of the great players in the game in Pete Crow Armstrong. I know you have multiple options on television right now. I think this series should be one of them. I can't wait.
I love this next story. St. Louis Magazine reporting on the fact that a 40-foot shipping container packed with 20 pianos has arrived from St. Louis to Uganda. It started its trip back on February 3rd. It's a collaboration between Joe Jackson, owner of St. Louis-based Jackson Pianos, and Father Thomas Serwata, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name, a Roman Catholic priest and doctoral student at St. Louis University. He reached out to Joe Jackson, the piano guy, after hearing that they had tried to supply pianos to venues around the city that needed pianos. And then Jackson was asked by the native Ugandan priest if he would perhaps consider getting some pianos to a seminary in Africa.
Nice.
Well, it was a big, the logistics were no joke, but they have done it. They have arrived and will provide the opportunity for music to be used in worship and teaching in places where they had no option or access to pianos before.
What do you think the total cost is again?
The total cost, the shipping cost alone were $20,000.
Wow.
So they raised that to be able to cover it. And Joe and Mr. Jackson, the person who made it all happen and did the fundraising to cover the expenses, says he's been invited now to go see the pianos in Uganda, and he says he's got to do it.
That's cool. That's a great story. All right. Thought three, stream of con. Puppy yoga. It's on Washington Avenue. Yesterday, Monique went six husky baby dogs. And they change the dogs actually each week, depending on what the style of yoga is. But it's for 45 minutes of yoga, 30 minutes of playtime. Not cheap. I think it's $65 a person. My wife and her sister went and said it was absolutely heaven. I mean, yoga can be kind of difficult, but if you had these puppies just kind of crawling all over you, it's just like really a lot of fun. And you throw in, by the way, her massage and the Muni, that spoiled brat. I mean, Monique had herself quite a birthday.
Yeah, you guys had a fun meal out
Yes.
as well to celebrate. How was it?
John Minio's, it was just, it's old school. I feel like I'm going into Italy. It was out of sight. Got the distinct honor of hanging with Zoe this weekend. Picked her up on Saturday at 3 o'clock. I got a disturbing text from my son 30 minutes before the pickup, and he's out of town. He said 4 words, no sweets for Zoe. My gosh, come on. Baskin-Robbins was a part of the itinerary. Can't do this. My response was, how about some organic brownies? He said, okay. I mean, what is the grandparent good for besides giving their grandchildren things that their parents would not give their kids? So I was kind of ticked off about that. Couple of shout outs at the downtown MAC. I think I've been to like 5 weddings there in the last 2 years. They are a machine. How do you serve 250 meals piping hot so quickly and tasty? It's an unbelievable operation they have down there. And at this wedding, they did something that I've never seen done before, not by the MAC, but by the families that were hosting it. Instead of having this book where you sign a like thing, hey, good luck, we're wishing you well, remember when you were 10 years old, they had 2 pink phones, and you pick up the phone and you leave a personalized message. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. We had something similar to that on video where it put together, people sending video messages to the happy couple at Peyton, and it's really special to have those for posterity, I guess is the way to say it. We had a rising music star in studios on Friday night. On Friday during the show. Andrew Lucier, got to see him play it off-Broadway on Friday night. He did a great job. Another rising country music star from our area, Alexander Kay, plenty busy this summer, opening for Brad Paisley, but she has carved out a little time to promote a new side hustle. I don't know if you had heard about this new coffee shop in her hometown of Waterloo, Illinois, just 35 minutes south here of St. Louis. And she recently purchased her longtime go-to shop called Waterloo's Bean Tree Cafe from its owners. They wanted to retire. She wanted to make sure there was still a coffee shop in her hometown. She'd gone there to write music, and so she reopened it this week as the Coffee Girl, keeping much of the menu, updating the decor. She got her big break, of course, on social media, singing covers while making herself a cup of coffee. She now has 8.6 million followers on TikTok. And Andrew said when he was in studio on Friday that social media has been key to his growing success as a songwriter and musician in Nashville as well. It's the new way to get yourself out there and seen by audiences.
And his concert was really good?
It was really good. It was great. He
Good
had
turnout?
a friend he met at the, it was great turnout. And he had a friend he met on The Voice who opened for him. Very good.
nice.
I'm forgetting his name now, but he was very good as well. But Andrew, I mean, it was so fun. A couple people came up to me and said, "Hey, Mrs. Farmer, do you remember who I am?" And they were kids I hadn't seen since elementary school. So I had to take some pictures and send it to my daughter, Jane, who's been friends with Andrew since they were little kids. And
Did he perform that song he did here?
he did, yeah. And wasn't that a great song?
That was a good song.
Yeah, we even got a text from McGraw about that, saying that was good stuff.
All right. We will take a short time out. This is the Frank and Jill Show. The Royal Banks of Missouri text line is open, 84126, and you can watch us on TV, on YouTube. Frank and Jill Show on KTRS.
This weekend we didn't have any rain. Things have dried out a little bit, which according to the experts, I'm not one of those experts, but according to the experts at places like Woods Basement Systems, that's been part of the big problem a lot of people had in our area is the ground got so saturated with the enormous amounts of rain we kept having and having again and weekend after weekend that even lighter rainfall was starting to cause problems for people and having things like water in the basement or water coming through window wells and all kinds of issues. And so now that things are drying out a bit, it's an excellent time as the pace gets a little less crazy, fewer emergency calls, for you to say, I'd like to get ahead of the game. I'm just going to quit crossing my fingers and hoping maybe at the next big rainstorm we don't end up with water. And I know that being proactive about this kind of thing is potentially going to save me thousands of dollars down the line to making sure that I don't have items damaged or home damaged that costs even more to fix. So now is the time to reach out to our friends at Woods Basement Systems. Have them come out, look at what you can do preventatively to make sure that if you've had a little water in the past, you have no water in the future and it doesn't become big water in the future if you ignore it for sure. Or perhaps you're just like, we've been thinking about wanting to use our basement space. It's unfinished. We've had it for storage. We want to make it into a playroom for the kids or grandkids, but I want to make sure that it stays dry into the future. Or maybe you want to put an egress window in downstairs so that space is more usable for you. Or maybe you want to look at redoing the gutters on your home. All those things Woods Basement Systems can help you with as well. woodsbasementsystems.com or give them a call, 618-708-4055. That's Woods Basement Systems.
season with the Cardinals and Cubs. Joining us now is the president of the Cardinals, Bill DeWitt III. Bill, good to be with you. How are you today?
Hey, guys. How's it going? I'm good, thanks.
Everything is good. So it's a Missouri bill aimed at keeping the Chiefs and Royals in our state. Missouri Senate Bill 3, Show Me Sports Investment Act. How could this end up helping the Cardinals and Busch Stadium?
Well, as you know, it was designed for the Chiefs and the Royals. And the Chiefs, the Royals in particular are looking for likely to build a new stadium somewhere. They've been, reported to be looking all around the region for a new location. Chiefs, I think, have also been offered something in Kansas, but I think a renovation is also on the table for them. I don't want to speak for them. I don't know where they are with it, but the bill was designed for those two purposes, to keep them in Missouri. For us, to the extent we have a big renovation plan coming in the future, it appears as though we would also qualify for the program. We still have to do a lot of work to, figure out what that looks like, but that would be how we would benefit by essentially using the same legislation to do a big renovation.
Hey, Bill, Jill Farmer here. Busch Stadium turning 20 years old next season. That seems hard to believe. We all still think of it as the new place. I know that there's been talk of significant renovations that will be needed just because that happens after 20 years. Can you give us an idea of what kind of renovations would happen and how it would impact the fans?
Yeah, I would put the answer to that into two buckets. One bucket would be things that fans don't necessarily see behind the house. Big HVAC systems, chillers, elevator replacements, escalator upgrades, things of that nature. And then the things the fans would see would be things like renovated club spaces, renovated concessions areas, possibly technology investments that might help with things like speed of lines on concessions and things, if you're focusing on that topic. There's a lot of gate entry technology that makes things quicker and better. Even facial recognition stuff that can make purchasing something seamless, where you just go in and grab it and then you're charged automatically. Sounds a little Big Brother-ish, and we're still trying to see what some of these pilot projects look like. But that's an idea of things that fans might see going forward.
Boy, it is hard to believe that it's, 20 years old, because like with Enterprise, which is now over 30 years old, the building looks brand new, and Busch Stadium 3 feels like it's still brand new to me.
Yeah, I still sometimes get caught saying our new stadium. Yeah, it's but when you get into our annual capital project planning meetings, it's a bit sobering on, well, this needs fixing, that needs fixing. At some point, all the seats need to be replaced. The scoreboards have basically a useful life of about 10 to 12 years. So, these things are just very expensive to maintain. The good news is, this was largely financed privately in our case, and we've been able to grow revenues during those 20 years to be able to afford a team on the field and all these improvements and things along the way. We've kept it in good shape. So I don't want fans to think that we've just let it go and now have handout to fix it. This is about continuing to invest in downtown St. Louis and continuing to basically put the money on the field so that we can put the best team possible out there for fans.
Bill, early in the season, Bill DeWitt III is joining us if you're just joining the show here. Early in the season, there was talk that maybe the numbers of fans was down a little bit for the Cardinals. Of course, they have been performing quite well, a fun team to watch. Many of the fans have really enjoyed seeing the success that they have been able to garner so far this season. How are the numbers of fans looking right now in the season?
Yeah, we are down a bit from last year, but I think we were all still kind of holding out hope that this exciting team that we have this year will bring people out, but more so than we budgeted in the second half. Frank, you mentioned Cubs in town tonight, and huge series for us, our rivals, and they're playing well, have a good season going. And so I think the excitement's there. We've had some issues with, we've had like 6 doubleheaders from rainouts, some of those on the road, but a lot of them at home. And, just like the heat wave now when we're finally into the thick of the season, it can affect things a little bit. So we're sort of, hopefully we're getting past a lot of that stuff, and in the heart of the season we'll see a nice uptick. And I would take the over on our budget, which, granted is down from last year, but I feel good about where this team is and where we're headed on it.
We just taped our sports show with Andy Van Slyke, and we were talking about how, the Cubs and Cardinals should be played on the weekend, and it would just be packed and rocking. But I'm wondering, just from an economical point of view, like if you were playing in this excruciating heat and, say, playing the Rockies, I don't think there'd be a lot of people at the ballpark. But the fact it's the Cubs, and even though it's midweek, the rivalry is so good, people will think, I don't care how hot it is, I got to see the Cubs and Cardinals. So is it a plus that you're having something that can actually draw in the middle of this, this heat wave?
I get your reasoning. I think that our preference would be to have them on the weekend, because what happens is when you have the Cubs on a summer weekend, you can really start to multiply the benefits of that great rivalry from an economic standpoint by having, great per caps and all kinds of other stuff. But, there's something to be said for, uplifting a weekday gate. But I would say, if you're just asking me, would I rather have it on the weekend or on the weekday, I'd say weekend.
All right, I want to ask you about your team president, baseball operations, John Mozeliak, and not even his detractors can deny his resume with the Cardinals. Sometimes he's not popular with fans, but I'm wondering, how important is it for you to see John Mozeliak kind of go out on a good note?
Oh, I think it's just it'd be a great story. He has had his share of detractors, but like you said, his record's excellent. He's still a young man. He's still got another chapter, but I don't think what people realize is how hard he's worked over these years in terms of getting up super early, all the travel, all of the things that this job entails. He has taken it absolutely 100% seriously for this whole stretch. And he's going to have no regrets looking back, because he's worked so hard and deserves all the credit. But I think another thing to just mention on that is that it's pretty impressive that he also has sort of teed this up for Chaim Bloom, who's going to take over at the end of the season, in a way that I feel like, some criticize this for, but I'm seeing the benefits of it, which is that Chaim has now had 2.5 years in our organization to understand it and to actually make change. How many guys would let a new guy come in and make significant changes in, for example, player development and staffing of the minor league hierarchy, in some cases making changes of the people you brought in, and do it in a way that has the organization's best interest in mind, so that when that transition occurs, it's seamless and Chaim can hit the ground running, as opposed to just, usually it's a firing and then the new guy's drinking from a fire hose.
Before we let you go, quick question back to this funding that could potentially help support some upgrades and changes at Busch Stadium. When this was in the hands of the Missouri legislature, a lot of people kind of thought toward the end, there doesn't seem to be a lot of will from the taxpayers, and some of the legislators seem to be indicating that we're not sure that we're going to end up supporting this on behalf of particularly these 2 Kansas City teams. And then, of course, a special session. And then new Governor Mike Kehoe came in and somehow negotiated between all of the parties that seem to be pretty at odds with each other to make it go through. You guys were watching it, obviously, even more closely than the rest of us. Were you surprised at the outcome, or is it kind of what you expected all along?
I would say going into the session and knowing what they were trying to accomplish, I was not thinking it was super high probability, maybe sort of like a coin flip. So to have it pass, I think, is a testament to the governor's political strength right now, and his passion for and his knowledge of the sports business in Missouri and how important it is. Keep in mind those two teams have an offer on the table from Kansas to leave the state. So, that's a pretty dramatic situation to be in as a new governor. I mean, to lose two of your teams potentially pretty soon after you take office. So I think he took a hard look at the economics that these teams generate, and he basically was able to convince legislators that, yeah, these aren't necessarily popular things, but if you look at it on balance, preserving that tax revenue and all the jobs and everything else would probably come at some cost, and they decided as a legislature to move forward. And by the way, this doesn't guarantee that the Chiefs and Royals will stay, but it puts a compelling offer on the table to combat what's happened and what Kansas has offered. And so I think his point was, let's take our best shot and let the chips fall after that.
One last one. Every 6 months or so, I'll be at a party and somebody will say, well, I hear the Cardinals are being sold. I'm wondering, has someone ever approached you about that, and what is your response?
Yeah, a lot of people come up and say, hey, I heard this, and they kind of look at me like, it can't be true, right? I say, no, it's not. I mean, I've heard some hilarious names, actually.
Yeah, Stan Kroenke, too, yeah.
Yeah, Warren Buffett, Stan Kroenke,
Frank Cusimano.
So, no, we're not for sale, and we're really excited about the next chapter that we see in front of us for the Cardinals, and we've been at it for 30 years. My dad's still excited about it, reads the minor league reports every morning, and, he's in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in tonight for the game, and tomorrow we're going to meet with staff. So it's still really fun for us, and we're committed to this, long term.
Yeah, I was just about to ask about your dad and that. He's 83 years old. He's sharp as a tack. Every morning, Jill, he gets the report on what every minor leaguer in the system did the night before. He is a true baseball man. Bill, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Good luck this week against the Cubs.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys.
All right, Bill DeWitt III joining us.
Speaking of minor league baseball players, our friend Mark Miller from over at Miller Furniture, former minor league player, and he has taken his ability to excel on the field to helping to run this incredible family business of Miller Furniture. So if you have been outside and doing some more grilling and appreciating the fact that we haven't had quite as many rainy weekends and realized, gosh, that old furniture that we've had for a long time that maybe we bought at that discount store on sale, there's a reason that it doesn't last very long because it's not very well made. And if you're ready for something that has a little bit more staying power when it comes to outdoor furniture, then of course you want to go to Miller Furniture's Fairview Heights location because that's where they have a beautiful array of chairs for you to see, try, and buy, and tables and all kinds of outdoor furniture. Of course, they have all kinds of furniture at multiple locations in the Miller Furniture stores around the area. And one of their goals was to make sure that somebody had a Miller Furniture store within driving distance of their home. They've done it. Belleville, Illinois, of course, is the original. That's where it all started. Flagship location, recently remodeled. Doesn't look like their oldest location because they've done so much great work. Fairview Heights, huge store, one of the biggest, if not the biggest mattress store in the entire St. Louis region. Lake St. Louis at the Meadows, and then, of course, in Ellisville off Manchester Road. And when you go in and you talk to some of the knowledgeable staff, they have design knowledge. They can help you take a look at the exact measurements from your rooms that you're trying to fill with furniture or your outdoor space and help make sure that you find the pieces that fit to scale in a way that's going to make your home look like beautiful, like it comes out of a magazine. Or if you have your own designer and you want to work with them on all the different ways they can make a remodeling project easier for you, storing the furniture until the remodeling is done enough for it to move there. custom design of each and every piece. They can pick the exact wood color, grain, all of the different fabrics that you want to use. They have it all. MillerFurniture.com if you'd like to check out some of the different beautiful new furniture they have that have come in, or better yet, stop by one of their locations today. Miller Furniture, that's Mueller. Oh yeah, I mean it's so great. We actually got to play there under some renovations, so we can ask him about the duck room is getting shined up a bit, and our band we had our little recital there at the duck room.
Is that
A few
right?
weeks ago, and it's about as cool place as I can think of to play in St. Louis. It was a fun moment for sure.
Yeah, people when you just drive in that whole loop area, I think it's just awesome.
Yeah, couple things off the text line, Royal Banks, Missouri text line 84126. As always, we love it when you join us. Inquiring minds want to know, Frank, including this person from the 217, did you actually obey your instructions with Zoe in terms of
Well,
not giving her sweets like your son asked?
no Baskin Robbins, but I did get approval on an organic brownie I could give her. And while she was eating it, she just said, more, more. I mean, so maybe she had
But
to.
it was practically health food, so
That's right.
yeah, so that was good. Somebody else pointing out that the adoption event, the puppy adoption event at Westport was fabulous. Great dogs, great people. Glad to hear it. And another regular listener, Mary Lynn, said that there was a crowd at Whiteman to welcome the planes home after.
Oh, that is
they went,
neat.
which was very cool.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Speaking of adopting puppies, I know Monique's going out of town Wednesday through Sunday.
Oh, no.
That's one idea. And then she's got a long trip, Croatia, coming up sometime in August. That's when she could come home to 2 dogs.
But last year, when she went to Greece, you didn't.
I did not.
Did not get dogs. But your
I could-
favorite thing about when she's out of town is you kind of go crazy on
Yeah.
the food. Is that accurate still?
Food, dogs, cars, TVs. Something's going to be done.
Okay, so should we put some money down on which one of those things will be purchased by the time she comes back? What do you think, Connor?
Probably will just be the food.
Yeah.
Probably
Um,
just the Sam's Club.
Connor
bread.
knows I'm a chicken. Yeah. But I tell you, when she showed me the pictures, what did I say? Not collies, they were huskies.
Huskies.
Oh my goodness, these dogs are the most beautiful things I've ever seen.
I mean, they are, aren't they? My parents adopted a husky from somebody who had health challenges when the years they lived in Colorado, and loyal, very, very loving dog. 2 downsides: the amount of shedding was unbelievable,
really?
particularly in the summer, just because they
Oh, yeah.
have such heavy coats and they come from colder climates. And then the other downside was he could leap. I'm not kidding, like a dozen feet to grab a steak off of a counter or wherever it was and be gone with it faster than anything you've seen in your life. They're definitely carnivorous.
Yeah, but maybe you just brought up an interesting point about the service dogs. Maybe I could get Dr. Rick to write me a note while she's in Croatia saying that he needs to be comforted by dogs.
Yeah, because she's so naive, she doesn't know the relationship of you and Dr. Rick and how easy that would be to make that happen, whether or not it's legit.
All right, back in time with John Sloan when we come back.
Temperatures continue in the St. Louis area with an extreme heat warning in effect until 9 Tuesday night. Health officials warned that spending long periods outdoors in extreme temperatures can lead to heat-related illnesses. It is recommended to stay in air-conditioned environments as much as possible and drink plenty of water. Anyone in need of a cooling shelter should call the United Way at 211. Air Force bombers from Missouri took a central role in the weekend's attack on Iran. U.S. defense officials say a group of B-2 stealth bombers took off from Whiteman Air Force Base near Kansas City and headed towards the Pacific Ocean as a diversion, while 7 other B-2 bombers from Whiteman headed east towards Iran. The aircraft dropped bunker-busting bombs on Iran's nuclear facilities as part of Operation Midnight Hammer before returning safely to Missouri yesterday. Meantime, lawmakers from Missouri are reacting to President Trump's decision to bomb nuclear sites in Iran. KTRS's Jill Enders has the story.
Congressman Wesley Bell released a statement which reads in part, quote, launching airstrikes without consulting Congress, without a clear strategy, and without providing transparency to the American people is not an acceptable path forward. I am also extremely worried that the massive risk of escalation will further put our service members at risk, end quote. Meanwhile, Congresswoman Ann Wagner expressed her support for the president's actions, saying, quote, Iran was given every chance to get rid of its nuclear program, but instead of choosing peace, the Ayatollah embraced violence and chaos, end quote. Meanwhile, demonstrations were held in St. Louis yesterday in response to the bombings in Iran. Protesters gathered at Keener Plaza where they marched to the Gateway Arch. Their message was, money for people's needs, not war on Iran. Jill Enders, KTRS News.
Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe will appoint members to the St. Louis City Board of Police Commissioners this afternoon. The new appointments mark the next step in the state's takeover of the St. Louis Police Department. The transition of control of the police department returns to the state after voters handed it over to the city in 2012. The announcement is expected during a 3:30 news conference. Seniors have more time to apply for the senior property tax freeze in St. Louis due to the May 16th tornado. The deadline was June 30th, but now has been extended to July 31st. The freeze only applies to residential real estate and does not apply to vehicles or other personal property. Eligible seniors may apply online at stlewis-mo.gov. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch has named St. Charles County's Developmental Disabilities Resource Board as the winner of the St. Louis Top Workplace of 2025. This prestigious recognition is based solely on employee feedback from a survey administered by Energage LLC. August 13th is a great day to visit the Missouri State Fair for Senior Appreciation Day. KTRS's Jim Fairchild has more on the special activities.
It's Senior Day, so of course they will have bingo, also live music by the County Liners, line dancing lessons, square dancing, and a dance contest. Look for senior appreciation discounts at select concessions and vendors, and a special lunch brunch will be held. Get a complete schedule at the Missouri State Fair website. Jim Fairchild, KTRS News.
This KTRS Business Minutes is brought to you by Walter Knoll Florists, the place for all your floral needs. Place your order anytime at WKF.com. Wall Street right now, all up. Dow Jones up 24 points to 42,231. S&P 500 up 14 points to 5,982. And the NASDAQ is up 63 points to 19,512. KTRS weather, extreme heat warning remains in effect until 9 Tuesday night. Today, sunny with a high of 98 and a heat index of up to 107. Tonight, partly cloudy with an overnight low of 77. Tomorrow, partly cloudy, chance of spot storms, high of 95. Right now, we have sunny skies, 91 degrees at 11:07. I'm Sobe Bay, KTRS News, the talk of St. Louis.
All right, welcome back. This is the Frank and Jill Show. Frank Cusimano, Jill Farmer here till 12 o'clock on the Big 550 KTRS. Our Back in Time segment is John Sloan, and what a career he's had. About 20 years in television and radio, and one of the pioneers of sports talk radio in St. Louis.
I invented I invented the
interrupt.
format here. Just so you know that they were doing it all over the country, but the modern format in sports talk radio I invented here. Originally, it was KMOX. Your question or comment, please, and I changed it into something else.
And as you can tell, folks, he's a very humble gentleman, too.
Right.
20 years in PR, terrific career there. And in the middle of all this, he goes to SLU Law School and becomes an incredible lawyer. And he went to law school at age 33. And I think what you're going to take from today's interview is that he'll say at least 2 words that you'll have to look up. One of the great vocabularies in the history of the St. Louis media. Welcome to the program. How are you, sir?
Thank you, Frank, and it's always a pleasure to see you. And Jill, I hadn't seen you in a while, but I've been in PR. I used to pitch you stories for consumer stuff and all
All
that
the
stuff.
time, yeah.
And you were
You
always
were-
so fun to work with.
And you were always so solid. I knew if you pitched a story, it was going to be interesting, and it was not something that we were just doing somebody
Well,
a
I
favor.
learned something when I was in media, and PR guys would call me, and most of them were not competent. Certainly, a lot of them had no idea how television worked, so they would pitch something without any visuals. So I did well at it, but it was fun talking to people like you. And Frank, I did the same thing. I mean, I got
Yes.
you out to Fairmount Park, which I represented for years.
And what was your selling point to myself and the photographer? If you come to Fairmount,
If you come, I'll feed you.
yes,
I
the
had-
all-you-can-eat buffet at Fairmount on Tuesdays.
Oh yes, and it was great in the Black Stallion room where we had a lot of retired folks. But
we
it
we
was good.
solved a lot of the world's problems in that buffet room. Yes,
We did. Most important is I was able to feed you and your crew, and we even got some good stories out of it.
Yes,
so.
and I got to hear John say that. Did you always say Dan Marino was the greatest quarterback of all time? Was he,
was
your guy?
the greatest quarterback of all time. He was Italian, which is all you need to know. And yes, he was.
And your TV years were working for, let's call him a great character in St. Louis media history, Ted Koppler. What was that like?
Well, let me think about the law now. Okay, he has passed away, so I cannot libel him as a matter of law. But no, we'll just be nice. Ted was a good guy, and but yes, he was. The news was only on the air because he wanted it. The news kind of was Ted's toy, and he used to watch it every night, and he'd critique it every night, and so yes, but you never knew what he was going to do next.
And you are credited with hiring Bob Ramsey at Channel 11. He worked for you?
I did hire Bob Ramsey out of Louisiana after. Actually, Ramsey owes everything to me. I think that's. I know he's in later today. I told him yesterday I was going to be on, so he really was amused at that. But no, it was one of the smartest things I ever did is bringing Bob in.
And were you the person that hired the rather infamous Bill Thomas during his career?
Boy, that was infamous. And people don't know because this is ancient history. I had nothing to do with it. But when I came to Channel 11, I was part of the news team, and the main anchor was a fellow named Bill Thomas. And then one day, I'd been there a few weeks anyway, and then after a few weeks, all of a sudden we were told Bill was off the air because he was arrested for selling cocaine to an undercover cop. Which shocked the hell out of me.
Happens all the time in
Apparently,
TV.
he didn't have a high enough salary to cover
no,
his
that's
expenses.
well, it's part of the point. If he was being paid well enough, maybe he wasn't doing it. But as I understand it later, he got himself hooked, and then he started selling it. Bill eventually did do some time in prison, but I understand he's okay now, and he is living in Florida.
So back then, you were at Channel 11 for 9 years.
Yes, sir.
From what to what?
From 78 to 87.
So no shooting and editing for you. Was it film or was it 3/4 inch?
Oh, no, we had 3/4 inch. When I started working in the business in Miami, that station, Channel 6 in Miami, we shot film. And that was actually quite an education to learn how to shoot film and edit it and timing and all that. But yes, we actually had modern equipment at Channel 11, excuse me, in those days.
Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Hartford, Connecticut, which is a great part of the country. I love New England. As Frank would say, I probably learned how to speak English there and have continued the practice to this day.
All right, let's talk about Sports Talk Radio because we take it for granted now, but for a long time, all we had was 1 hour per night from 6:15 to 7 o'clock
Right.
on KMOX, where Bob Burns or Bob Bragg, they would take a real pro-organizational point of view, would never rip into. Then this thing called KASP and KFNS come along. How do you remember the early days?
Of KFNS, well, it just came up. I did, I suppose, invent it, but it just seemed natural to me because I had heard shtick all over the place. But even I knew it was bad radio, that what KMOX was doing successfully. But that's another issue. They had all the wattage and people were used to them. But your question or comment, please. Okay, I think the Cardinals are great. Okay, we'll talk about it. That was their format in those days. And I said, come on, let's do something. So I was on a station nobody was listening to, and which I should have gotten used to. But I said, okay, so let's mix things up. Let's go crazy. And I used to drop a lot of sound effects and lines from movies and that sort of thing in it. And people were just, they were so upset about that I was doing any change. And eventually I got a call from Robert Hyland at KMOX who wanted to get me off the air because he couldn't stand to have anybody doing that on the air. And I did work at KMOX for a little while.
Very fun history. And you, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, really a very successful career in public relations after law school, TV, radio, law school, and then into public relations. You were representing lots of well-known entities and people around the St. Louis area during those years, pre-social media. So that people couldn't quite get themselves in the same trouble that they do sometimes with social media.
That is true. I despise social media as a general thing. I believe it is mostly a force for evil, or has become that way. As far as, misinformation, disinformation, hate, it's terrible. I know it's not going away, but yes, it is a tool in public relations today. I used it a little bit, but I was an old school publicist. I meant to get them on television and radio and newspaper and magazine and all that sort of thing. But I don't like social media. Doesn't matter if I don't like it; it's not going away. But it's had a terrible effect.
I don't know if you're allowed to tell us all your previous clients. I know a big one was the Fairmount Racetrack, but can you tell us some other people that you work with that were noteworthy?
I've had an interesting and eclectic list, but many years for President Casino on the Admiral, which was a lot of fun. Many years, and I'm still representing Central Bank of St. Louis. It was First National Bank back in those days. And boy, there's been so many I can hardly remember. But it was. And today I still represent Rottler Pest Solutions, and they're wonderful people. And I know, so all the media guys know when you think of pests, think of Sloan.
That's great. So I was just going to tell folks, you have not retired yet, obviously, but you're living out in Lake St. Louis, which is kind of a fun place to live in this season of life.
It's a lovely place. I was fortunate enough a few years ago to marry a wonderful woman, my wife Grajna, who lived in Lake St. Louis, and we decided I'd move in with her instead of the other way around, so I moved out of Chesterfield. I have to mention my two beloved doggies, Brover and Ozzy, as long as we're talking about my home life. And but anyway, semi-retired and in Lake St. Louis and having a wonderful time. I still work with my PR company, John Sloan PR LLC, and having a good time with that.
Let me just quickly follow up on that, because you as you said, you liked your life in Connecticut growing up, and then you ended up in St. Louis through media work, but you never left. What is it that has kept you here? What is it that you love about St. Louis that's kept you here all this time?
That's a great question. I wish I had a great answer. Again, out of college, I went to work in Miami, and I thought that was a different era, but I enjoyed. That was so long ago. They didn't have anything but the Dolphins. We were covering shuffleboard and dog racing for sports, but just happenstance, I heard about a job in St. Louis at 11, and I came up and I auditioned. Didn't audition. I interviewed, and Ted hired me on the spot. Underpaid me dreadfully, but that's another discussion. And I would be embarrassed to tell you, even in 1978 $8, it was terrible. But anyway, it was a good experience. But one thing led to another. I had a great time in the city. Loved all the sports, and just never opportunity to move out to anything which would have been better would have happened. And then eventually decided to go to law school and committed to that. So I'd like to say the rest, as they say, is history, or at least infamy.
Didn't Bernie Miklasz, in his famous Saturday column, Bernie's Bits, which everybody read for a long period of time, didn't he used to just pop your picture in there for no apparent reason? He just loved this photo that made you look rather, I don't know.
Better than I did in real life.
Yes.
No, Bernie was always a good friend. We had a lot in common, and Yes, I used him. I have to say use him is a bad choice of words, but if I had a note for a column or something that promoted me or something,
Yes.
he was nice enough to sometimes put it in. He also had a great file picture of me. Great thing about now is I'm so old, but the post file picture is still about 40 years old. So whenever I croak, they're going to think I'm young.
One of the things I get from following you from time to time on social media is your undeniable love for your son and what he's meant to you. And you're so proud of him. He's your best friend in life, right?
I would say so.
Tell me about him.
He's the best man I know, Adam. He is a Kellogg MBA, which is not easy to do. He's brilliant. I don't know where he got that. But he now is the CFO of Northwestern Medical Complex. I mean, that's a major job. He manages billions of dollars. He has a wife, Dana, and my 2 grandchildren, Henry and Naomi.
In Chicago?
In Chicago. And I could not have done any better. No man ever had a better son. And of course, I want to cut off my daughter, Catherine, who also, by happenstance, lives in Chicago. And she's the light of my life as well.
And so you, knowing the media landscape like you did and working so closely with building relationships with people in St. Louis media, not only when you were working but in the media, but also when you were in public relations and trying to get stories placed for your clients. Did you have a couple people or somebody that you got particularly close to or that you think had one of the biggest and best influences on St. Louis media during really, because I consider the 80s and the 90s the heyday of local news?
Well, I never considered it that way. It was great if I had a close, it's not always necessary, but had a close personal relationship with a lot of people that I used to harass for stories, and 2 of them are in this studio, you, Jill, and Frank. But no, I had any number of people. The guys at the assignment desk, you had to get on their good side because they're all nervous wrecks, and I gotta go. There's a police
High pressure
squad.
job.
That is a good characterization. Yes.
That's basically it. So I'd say no, any number of them that I was very close to, and I'm still close to them. So it was that was a good experience, being able to test the bounds of my friendship if they would hang up on me or be tempted to hang up on me.
Connor, how about if we get a little Mission Impossible and we put John on the spot with some no hedging questions? And John, you got to be fast on these. How about your all-time worst interview in your basically 20 years of TV and radio? Who would it be?
Bill Belichick.
That's good.
I had him on my radio show. He was coaching the Cleveland then. He wasn't, didn't know who he was beyond that. And it was the worst interview. Everything, I finally cut the thing off. It was just so bad. I did the hell with it. Thanks, Bill.
How about the interview that you couldn't believe you were talking to this person? Oh, my goodness. I'm interviewing. Who would it be?
That would have been Don King. And again, it was impossible to do, but he was so fascinating, and he wouldn't stop talking. But I love boxing. He was one of the great characters in the history of sports. Don's still around, I think.
Yes, like 93, yeah.
I still couldn't believe I was on with him. That was great.
Favorite or most memorable interview you ever did?
Oh, boy. God, there were so many. Probably Tom Seaver. Sadly passed away a few years ago and much too young. But I was a big Mets fan growing up, and still believed that he is the best pitcher of the modern era. And he was. But I was, when I was a kid growing up, he was just my hero. When you're like a teenager, and so he was that. And it was a great interview, and that was most memorable to me.
How about your most embarrassing moment on TV or radio?
Oh, that's another one that's easy. I was doing between games, the post-game show on the Blues telecast from Winnipeg. It was the playoffs, and we messed up. My producer was Greg Marisek, as a matter of fact, and he's telling me we're on the ice. I just interviewed Dale Hawerchuk, who left the ice, and they told me, "Okay, John, when we come back, you just have 30 seconds, wrap it up, and say goodnight." And then about 10 seconds before we went on, he said, "Oh no, it's wrong. You got 3 minutes. You got to fill 3 minutes." I'm sitting there in an empty arena with no material, no nothing, no interview, anything, and I've got to go on and twiddle for 3 minutes. So I still don't even remember what I said, and I hate to see it.
Okay,
but that was my most embarrassing.
Final question: favorite restaurant, past or present, in St. Louis?
I used to really like Del Pietro's.
Oh,
Are they
yeah.
still
Good
around?
call. Great salad. Yeah.
Okay, and I should have said Frank's Family Restaurant. I said that was Chemo's. That was
No,
that
that's
was
fine.
great too. But that
That's
was
good.
my favorites.
John, great to see you. Congrats on an unbelievable career. I'm glad to see you're doing well, sir.
And I'm honored to be here and know that if you get me for a Here Are They Now, I must be either terribly famous or terribly obscure. Probably both.
We'll come back with the UMSL Song of the Day, Quote of the Day right after this. is not mean. She's just logical and disciplines when I need to be disciplined.
And he was somewhat of a famous person. He had stand-up comedy, but not famous
No.
like this. And she was not famous.
Yeah.
The show really took her to the next level.
And the whole character, I mean, Robert was unbelievable. Marie, the mom, Frank, the dad. I mean, gosh, it's almost Seinfeldian as you're not sure who the best character is.
And you guys, you and Connor are better at keeping track of, like, can you see the reruns? Can you watch the reruns of
Oh, yeah.
Everybody Loves Raymond? Is it out there?
It's
I've
somewhere.
never seen an episode of Everybody Loves Raymond.
haven't?
I have to say, I don't think
Yeah.
that one. I don't think the show has. It's not one of those ones that still gets watched a ton, and maybe that's because the access was lower. But people my age still have seen Seinfeld, or Friends is super popular because it was on Nick at Night. I know when I was a kid. Everybody Loves Raymond, not as much. I don't think it speaks to the quality.
But it
just,
still
just,
is on. You can see it on a regular basis.
Do you ever watch it just for old time's sake?
If it's one of later in the series when she looks particularly good. God, am I shallow?
So it's just your association with it is I just need a little hit of Patricia to make me feel better about my day. It's not like
Yeah.
Seinfeld where I want to go back and watch the show because I loved this particular episode where it had this funny plot.
Yeah, here's a texter. They have reruns of Everybody Loves Raymond on every day. Is Frank saying that Patricia got progressively more beautiful, and Monique did not? No, actually, Monique is actually more attractive than Patricia.
Yeah, she is. I will.
So
I
Monique,
will
if you're
side with
listening,
that.
there you go. That's
And
for you.
somebody checking in, last interview was with John Sloan, former radio and TV personality and PR man extraordinaire for many, many years. Still in the biz. I didn't realize I thought he'd retired. So I think it's kind of fun that he's still keeping his foot in the business as well.
Yes.
Speaking of being in the business, Salvation Army is in the business of helping upwards of 6,500. I mean, that's like the population of a small town. 6,500 children in our St. Louis region alone get to have Christmas every year, get toys for Christmas every year because of the incredible work of the Salvation Army's Angel Tree Project. And so we have always been partners for a very long time with them at making sure that we get toys in the hands of those kids. Because of the tornado in May, we know that we're going to have more kids than ever in the St. Louis region that are going to need some help getting the toys they deserve for Christmas. And guess what? Christmas in July is a really fun way to get things rocking and rolling. So we have partnered with our friends at the Salvation Army and here at Westport to put on a Christmas in July celebration coming up on July 11th. And July 18th, we'll have free movies here at Westport out in the courtyard where they have a giant screen. It's kind of like an old-fashioned drive-in movie, only you're not driving your car and watching them. You come sit out under the stars, watch a movie, a family-friendly movie, and it's going to be a blast for the whole family. All you have to do to come is to bring a new unwrapped toy, a toy that you know your kids would love getting, and make sure that you have that to be able to share with other kids in our region from the Salvation Army to help them have the Christmas that they deserve. Christmas in July, brought to you by KTRS, the Big 550, along with our friends at Westport and the Salvation Army. Stay tuned for more information on Christmas in July coming up in the next few weeks.
Hey, the Bommarito Automotive Group is Missouri's #1 automotive group. They've sold over 1 million vehicles by giving you a better price, a better selection, and more for your trade. You can shop them online today. See their entire inventory online today at bommarito.com.
And welcome back to the Frank and Jill Show on the Big 550 KTRS. Frank Cusimano, Jill Farmer, here till 12 o'clock. You know, when you think of that Loop area, if you had to think of one name which symbolizes that area, it would definitely be our next guest, Joe Edwards, the man who brought us Blueberry Hill about 5 decades ago. He joins us now. Joe, thanks for being a part of the program. How are you today?
Doing fine. Thank you.
So right off the bat, I want to ask you, after the tornadoes, how is the Loop area looking? What's it looking like right about now?
It's actually looking pretty good. It's things on each side of Del Mar really took the biggest hit. How or why, I don't know whether like that works, but we survived pretty cleanly. There's some repairs that had to be done on various buildings, but nothing devastating.
Well, speaking of repairs, it sounds like there's some upgrades that are coming to Blueberry Hills Duck Room. Tell us about that.
Oh, yes, I'm excited about that. The Duck Room has always been great with featuring musicians that come from around the world, really, not just our country, through the decades. And it was kind of time to update the lighting system, putting in a brand new state-of-the-art lighting system. And just doing some painting and touching up and all that. It's still as good physically as it was before, but with more and brighter touches.
And when you think about Blueberry Hill, you think about Chuck Berry. I'm wondering, how did the relationship begin?
Well, when I was in high school, I went to see him at a concert in a high school gym, of all places, as his career had kind of gone down at that time, and then, of course, it rose big time again later on. But no, the friendship then started just where I brought out a beer called Rock and Roll Beer because Blueberry Hill was so steeped, and still is, in beer selection. And so I decided to do my own called Rock and Roll Beer. And then I decided to do a Heroes of Rock and Roll on cans, and it was important to me that he be the first one to be pictured on a Rock and Roll Beer can. And later on, people like Jerry Lee Lewis and Bo Diddley were featured, but Chuck was the first. And he, I think, really felt that the offer that I proposed was as much as Coca-Cola might have done, for example, even though he knew I didn't have that kind of money like they did. But that's how honest I think he felt I was. And he didn't trust many people, but he trusted me from that moment on.
If you're just joining us, Joe Edwards, the Duke of Del Mar, as some call him, is joining us, reminiscing a bit about 50-plus years at Blueberry Hill. You've always been very forward-thinking and, of course, given so much well-deserved credit for the revitalization of the whole Loop area. Are you still dreaming and scheming about what's next or what you would like to see happen in terms of new development or change in the district?
Well, there's some great new development happening right now. Even in the western part where Commerce Bank used to be, their building used to be just west of Blueberry Hill, for example. There's a company that's building a brand new big project there that'll have a lot of office people and retail on the first level. There are things east of Skinker also going on. So as far as my own stuff, I'm just in the process of fine-tuning right now and not looking to build a brand new thing other than fine-tuning places like Magic Mini Golf. I always like creating places where you don't have to be good at the sport to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And it can be families, could be grandparents, or it could be young kids, and all. You can be competitive, but you don't have to be.
Another one of your great ideas was founding the nonprofit, the St. Louis Walk of Fame. How did you come up with the idea, and how big is it? I mean, I think you have over 150 now.
Yes, it might be over 170 by now. I don't have an exact figure in front of me, but no, I watched St. Louis get overlooked nationally, as far as how many great St. Louisans contributed to our culture on a national level, and that it's just it kind of irritated me that people in New York and Philadelphia and San Francisco just didn't really think St. Louis had influenced our culture in that major way. So that's what kind of triggered me to start it. And I figured, well, I want to start a nonprofit St. Louis Walk of Fame, but it was really important to me not just to put their name on a star on the sidewalk, but to have that for sure, but also to have an accompanying informative plaque that in 10 lines roughly kind of condense their contributions. And people read those like crazy. School groups come in, tourists that are reading them, St. Louisans that read them, and they're going, wow, I didn't realize that guy did all that or that woman did so-and-so. It's really gratifying it's an educational attraction, basically.
So, speaking of the St. Louis, of course, Walk of Fame and the Duck Room, which you've talked about, through that you have had the chance to meet a lot of incredible performers and very famous people. Was there one person that you've met, or a couple people that you've met that you will always remember that kind of blew you away because even for Joe Edwards, it left a mark, or somebody that you'd always wanted to get to know?
Yeah, there are a bunch of them actually. One of my biggest thrills, because I watched in 1969, man set foot on the moon, and to have met Neil Armstrong was a thrill. I mean, just the first person that did that, and the fact that we're about to go back to the moon in the next 2 or 3 years is pretty exciting, and so I'm proud to have that picture at Blueberry Hill and at the Moonrise Hotel.
Yeah, give us an idea of some of the famous musicians that have performed at your restaurant on Delmar. I think people would be amazed.
Yeah, they're probably a couple of hundred pictures up on the walls, and then they can find the ones that influenced them or they appreciated the most and all by just walking up and down the corridors here at Blueberry Hill. They're just. It's hard to explain, from Bruce Springsteen to Keith Richards to obviously Chuck Berry and Albert King, great blues musician who played with his left hand backwards on a guitar.
Did you envision this career for you? I mean, like, what did you do starting when you began your career? Did you think, yeah, this is what I'm going to do?
No, and that's I think that, like a lot of young people in their 20s, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I went to Burroughs here in St. Louis and Duke College and then some Army time. But other than that, I was kind of like, okay, now what am I going to do? And I figured, well, I have this incredible record collection, like 30,045 RPM records, and lots of pop culture memorabilia. And I figured, well, I'm going to try on a very limited budget with borrowed money from friends to open a place and display things in display cases and program the jukebox and change the tunes, except for Blueberry Hill, change the tunes every 2 weeks. And it became a big draw. This was before the internet stuff and jukebox stuff and all that. And people came in because of that jukebox. And the food was good and the drinks were strong, so that all helped too. But that program, I hand typed out every title strip, and in addition to putting the title of the song and the artist and the year the song was popular, but I put the flip side on too. And then just slid those in every 2 weeks. It was time consuming, but people loved it. John Goodman came in with his friends when he was still living in St. Louis and Afton and all, and just they would pump quarter after quarter in that jukebox and start singing along and sometimes dancing and getting a little loud in a wonderful way.
Oh,
wonderful way. People loved it.
That's incredible. So before we let you go, 53 plus years doing what you do, what about it do you still love?
Pretty much everything. I love the people. I love the staff who are very dedicated and very friendly and nice and very talented. And then the customers are what makes a place too. And just having nice people come in where anybody would feel comfortable here, and we very much protect that. I mean, if there's some not good person, then he doesn't last long, like 3 minutes, and he's banned for life. But so, but it is. It's just nice having a friendly atmosphere that people can trust, and there's so much for them to see that they really enjoy it. Like, you can come in by yourself and not feel like a Lone Star type of person. You can just walk around and get a beverage and check things out and enjoy yourself. You know, whether from out of town at a convention or just in town, you know, going out on your own.
Yeah, and I'm sure we've piqued the interest of many of our listeners who haven't been there yet. What's the go-to meal for Joe Edwards? What would you eat there?
Well, the hamburger, the cheeseburgers are really, really good. I think we're known for that a lot. But the homemade soups are what I love. Their recipes are spectacular, and then there everything else that goes along with that. I think there's nothing bad on the menu. Anything that didn't work out, I didn't keep on the menu, obviously. So there are a lot of vegan and vegetarian dishes. There's something for everyone on that, and it's a pretty broad menu, pretty extensive menu. So a group of 7 or 8 in a family of all ages can come in, and they'll all find something, whether it's the children or the grandparents or the parents.
Joe, honored to have you on. What a great career you've had. Continued success. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you both very much.
All right. Joe Edwards joining us from Blueberry Hill. Take a short time out, but we have a little bit of business before we go to break.
A little bit of business before we go to break, and that's talking about our air conditioning units, because they're running hard. They're, in many cases, this is the time when we put them to the test, and sometimes we find out, darn it, that unit that I was hoping would limp along for one more summer is just not going to make it. If that's the case for you, or if your unit is not old enough for replacement but not operating at top level, and you know that it needs either a Freon charge or something else to get it running in tip-top shape, Premier Heating and Cooling is the place to call. They are oldest and most experienced American standard customer care dealer, so if you need a new unit, they can sell you the best of the best at a great price, and they can do financing, make that available for you as well. If it's getting, as I mentioned, the Freon charge or one of the other many different ways that maintenance can help our units run better and more efficiently, they stay on top of all the constantly changing federal legislation when it comes to the environmental standards with the Freon to make sure that the best, the one that fits within the guidelines and is going to do the best for your unit is available to you as well. And one of the reasons they stay on top of it is because training is very important, all the way from the owners down to every single technician. They want to make sure they stay on top of the constantly technologically advancing heating and cooling industry, and they want to make sure that they have the best of the best technicians to take care of whatever it is you need in your heating or cooling system at home. PremierHeatingCooling.net, 636-916-1122. That's Premier Heating and Cooling.